The Bronx faces a very serious and growing opioid crisis. Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clark is holding a community summit in partnership with the Acacia Network and the Third Avenue Bid. The gathering will address the complex health, economic, and social issues associated with the opioid crisis as they seek to find solutions in a compassionate, collaborative, and inclusive way. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about the work of the Third Avenue Bid and the upcoming summit is Michael Brady. He's the executive director of the Third Avenue Business Improvement District. And Mike, good to have you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Good. Let's tackle the hard stuff first, talking about this opioid crisis that continues to plague the borough of the Bronx. First of all, let's talk numbers, right?
Yeah.
Real staggering numbers when it comes to the borough of the Bronx.
Absolutely. You know, if the South Bronx, not even the entire Bronx, but if the South Bronx were its own state, we would rank #2 in the United States for fatalities as a result of overdose.
If we just the South Bronx alone.
Just the South Bronx. Once you equate all of the fatalities in the Bronx, we're #1, and we rank up there with West Virginia. So the opioid crisis in the Bronx is very real, and it requires, you know, a multi-sector approach to really addressing it. You know, we haven't seen a crisis like this since the 70s and 80s with the HIV and AIDS epidemic. And, you know, it's unfortunate to say, but largely because the issues have crept into white communities and communities of upper incomes is one of the reasons why a lot of resources are being funneled this way. Whereas, you know, the challenges facing, you know, the South Bronx have been around for generations. Opioids are not new to our communities, you know, south of 161st Street. But now we're getting a lot of resources together, and we're really looking forward to partnering with the DA's office on Monday to, you know, bring community groups together to really collaboratively address this.
So, and I'm not to cut you off, but when you tell me about the crisis itself, from a business perspective, how do we see this really walking through the doors of our businesses?
Sure, one of the reasons people look at us and say, well, why is a business improvement district involved in this? And, you know, it has direct consequence on the economic development of our areas. So, you know, if we take the hub, for example, you know, a lot of folks have equated the hub to Zombieland. There was a New York Post article about 4 months ago that stated just that. And people don't want to shop, you know, in places where, you know, there are overdoses. People don't want to shop in places where there are panhandlers or everything that's associated with drug use. And I, you know, hate to just fixate on opioids because it's usually a combination of several factors. You know, opioids, alcohol, K2, heroin. It's a combo mix that really has this detrimental effect. But the prevalence in the hub, specifically at 149th Street, has really made the business community stand up. And, you know, we have about 1,200 businesses in our portfolio, and everyone is being impacted by it.
And so when you have this crisis, of course, we know about naloxone kits.
Absolutely.
Are your businesses being armed with those, given the fact that somebody can walk through the door at any time?
Sure, absolutely. You know, so the Third Avenue Bid, in partnership with Acacia Network, St. Anne's Corner of Harm Reduction, and Department of Health and NYPD, has led a series of naloxone trainings for small businesses, also community organizations, to really make sure that we make sure that everyone can, at the very least, save a life. Councilmember Rafael Salamanca, who represents our district, has really been leading the charge on this, not only in leading trainings, in fact, his entire staff is trained, but also in terms of making sure naloxone is available in every New York City DOE institution to make sure that a teacher, a student, whomever can make sure that they can save a life.
That's awesome. Talk to me a little bit more about the business district, because obviously, you know, you're at the hub, a lot of traffic, a lot of business going through there. Summer's coming right around the corner. I know it doesn't feel like it today, but what you got coming around the corner?
Absolutely. You know, we are gearing up for tons of summer programs. You know, in addition to managing 149th Street and 3rd Avenue, we also oversee the Southern Boulevard Business Improvement District and the Bruckner Boulevard Commercial Corridor. So we have tons of events coming up. You know, the largest one that's in the immediate future is in June. We're hosting One Bronx World Pride to celebrate the LGBTQ community. This is the 4th year that the event has been held in the hub. We're expecting about 25,000 folks to attend. It's part of the World Pride celebration, so we're really gearing up for that in a big way. Lots of different community festivals focused, you know, from weekend walks where we have public artists to a dunk tank where we're hoping we'll be able to dunk some of our elected officials in June, straight through to back to school programming and the installation of public art on the completed Roberto Clemente Plaza.
So a lot going on throughout the course of the summer for you.
Absolutely.
When you look at the transformation through the last 3 years, what have you seen?
You know, it's uncanny to see the hub has really progressed. It's difficult to say that, but you know, when you look at where things were 10 years ago, we have a lot of new stores that are opening up. We have a lot of public works projects that are completed or near completion, and we just have a lot of new development happening. You know, the completion of Las Central, and then over the next 2 years, we'll bring online about 1,000 new units of housing. And then adjacent development sites are really going to bring on about 3,000 units of housing, sorely needed housing for Bronx residents. And we're hopeful that that, combined with the dramatic public investment that we've seen over the past 3 years, will really create a new hub and a new corridor, a new gateway for the South Bronx.
What do you find to be your biggest challenge today?
I think the opioid crisis is definitely the largest. It's something that impacts our community in a very large way. I think secondarily is trying to balance out the fear of gentrification and the reality that some development is healthy, and we have to navigate that conversation and really make sure that Bronxites who live and work in the Bronx can stay, but also take a look at underutilized areas or increased residential density in certain areas to make sure that we are making room for New Yorkers to have homes. And the Third Avenue bid is really pushing for home ownership as well as condoed store ownership in our commercial districts to make sure that people can actually buy and stay. We all know that home ownership is something that equates to stability and empowerment, and we're really big proponents of that.
You spoke to home ownership and homeowners. Talk to me about businesses. How do they feel? Rents are rising, of course.
Absolutely.
And there is a great fear on their part of being able to lose their business, and also that fear of gentrification.
Sure. There are a lot of pieces of legislation currently in the New York City Council that range from a vacancy tax to a vacancy fine to a vacancy registry as a way to handle rising rents. But I always like to say we can't just handle rising rents without handling rising taxes. 9 out of every 10 commercial tenants have a tax passed through in their lease, which means when the city raises the rent on the property owner, they're also raising it on that small business. So until the city fixes its broken commercial tax structure, whereby it's an overburdened structure of about 35% on commercial properties, we're not going to see any real transformation on small business rents. So we're trying to figure out an appropriate package to put in with the city council that addresses vacancy, that addresses illegal vending, which has an impact on brick and mortar businesses, but also really takes a hard look at an antiquated structure in our city's tax system that hasn't been addressed in about 60 years.
Good working relationship between your elected officials?
Sure. I love our Bronx elected officials. I think City Hall and I can probably have a better relationship. I don't know if the mayor likes what we're doing in the South Bronx very much, but sometimes we have to be loud to get the resources that our community needs. And after 60 plus years of disinvestment, we need to be loud and we need to demand equity from our elected officials.
Michael Brady, Executive Director.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
for the Third Avenue Business District, and want to let you know he's the Executive Director of Third Avenue Business Improvement District. And as we say, the Bronx DA's Opioid Community Summit taking place on Monday, May the 6th, 9:30 a.m., Metropolitan College of New York. The Bronx campus, located on 463 East 149th Street. Once again, 463 East 149th Street. Come on out and have your voice heard. Taking a quick break. Stay tuned. We've got more Open coming up right after this.